All right, let's give a 30-second warning to the TV, and then we'll get started.
So Bay Winds finally got rid of you, huh?
I'm sorry, Peter. No more baked goods.
Okay, TV 18 is good. So whenever you're ready to
Okay,
start.
thank you. I would like to call to order the September 15, 2020 meeting of the West Palm Beach Planning Board. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Stephen Mans,
Present.
Todd McLeod,
Here.
Peter Pivko,
Here.
Deborah Rain,
Here.
Andres Paradello,
Here.
Mark Pateman,
Here.
Christopher Chase,
Here.
Scott Holtz.
Present.
All right, thank you. The next order of business is approval of the July 21, 2020 minute. Has everyone had the opportunity to review them? Any changes? If not, I'll look for a motion for approval.
So move.
Move. Second.
We have a motion. Have we a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is the report of the planning staff. Angela, are you going to do the honors?
Good evening, board. Angela Van, Planning and Zoning Administrator. It's just one case that was approved since your last planning board meeting. So this was a text amendment, so I don't have a slide. But it was the major PD amendment to the city place retail to the master sign plan to allow a little more variety in signage. They're getting away from the Mediterranean type style. You approved it back on July 21st by a vote of 7-0, and City Commission approved it on September the 8th by a vote of 5-0. And that's the only case that's been heard since your last planning board meeting.
All right, thank you. And next on our agenda are remarks by the chairperson, of which I have none, which brings us then the declaration of ex parte communications. And let me begin by disclosing that I had a telephone conference with Harvey Oyer, the applicant's counsel, and planning board case number 111XX 1857-1857A. I also spoke with Jeff Sluggett, a representative of a neighboring property owner. Finally, I received 5 letters of support for the applicant, which I have forwarded to the clerk for inclusion in our record. My conversations with Mr. Oyer and Mr. Sluggett will not prevent me from deciding the cases before us based solely upon the evidence presented this evening. Does anyone else have anything to disclose?
I had ex parte communication, and I will reiterate exactly what Steve just said.
Okay.
He said it so well.
Anyone else have anything to disclose?
I received an email from Harvey Oyer's office. I was not able to return that email or respond. However, my decision will be based on the evidence presented this evening.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I also had a phone teleconference.
Todd, go ahead.
Yes, I also had a phone teleconference with Harvey Oyer's office on the PBAU cases. And I received an email and returned a phone call. We were not able to connect, but I received an email from Jeff Sluggett representing one of the adjacent property owners. However, any decision will be made strictly based on the evidence presented here this evening.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes, I also had a Zoom meeting with Harvey Oyer on the PBAU cases and received several letters that were emailed, I believe, to the entire board and did review them. However, any decisions that I would make tonight would be solely based on the evidence and testimony presented at this hearing.
Thank you, Peter. Did you?
Ditto.
Okay, ditto. All right. That's a legal term. We're familiar with it. Chris, did you have anything to disclose? Your mute's on.
I received several emails as well. I was unable to make the time to review them or speak with the person, with the sender, and my decision will be based solely on what I hear this evening.
Okay, Mark, I think you're the only one I didn't cover.
Yep, I received emails from Mr. Oyer's office, but I can make my decision on the evidence presented tonight.
Thank you so much. All right. That brings us then, let's see, to the public hearing portion of our meeting and the swearing in of the speakers. Let's see, Mr. Roach, have you called everyone in now who will be speaking for our next?
If you're ready for the first item, I will bring everyone in.
I am.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Did you need the script, Chairman?
Oh, if that's something we need to do, I would like you to go ahead and proceed. Is that something we should do prior to this, or I guess do it right now? Is that what you're suggesting? Please, Ms. White, go ahead and proceed.
Pursuant to Executive Order 20-69, issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, and Mayor Keith A. James's Executive Order number 2020-05, issued on April 2nd, 2020, the City of West Palm Beach's boards and committees are conducting meetings through media technology and have released the requirements to have a quorum of its members physically present at City Hall. On April 14, 2020, Mayor Keith A. James issued Executive Order 2020-09, which specifically provides the rules of procedure for conducting city meetings, including requirements for quasi-judicial hearings. To ensure the ability for the public to continue to participate in this hearing, it is being streamed live and available for viewing in the City Commission chambers located at City Center, 401 Clematis Street, on the condition that social distancing be practiced. Additionally, for those wishing to access the meeting remotely, they are able to do so directly through the applicable Zoom webinar link, as well as the city's usual media channels, including WPB-TV 18, the city's website, and the city's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter feeds. Anyone from the public who would like to provide comment on an agenda item is able to do so through the following. Number 1, in the City Center Flagler Gallery. Number 2, by dialing 561-320-6451 and leaving a voicemail not to exceed 3 minutes. Number 3, sending an email or video recording to pbpubliccomment@wpb.org, or number 4, completing the online public comment form at www.wpb.org/public comments. Those accessing the meeting directly through Zoom may also use the Q&A or raise hand features. Anyone accessing just the Zoom audio using their phone may raise their hand by pressing *9. Regardless of method, please be sure to indicate the agenda number or case number for which you are providing comment. Everyone providing testimony must have video capability and will need to be sworn in. The swearing in will occur at the start of each case on the agenda. If you are about to provide testimony and were not sworn in, please be sure to indicate such and be sworn in before offering your testimony. After the applicant presents their case, staff will provide a presentation, and then the public will have an opportunity to speak or have their comments read into the record from previously received correspondence. The board will then go into executive session. Prior to rendering a decision, the board will confirm no additional public comments have been received by staff. And finally, for the members of the board, it is emphasized that Florida's sunshine laws are applicable and you may not use the chat feature or any other form of individual communication to discuss matters with other board members, the applicant, or the general public during the meeting.
Thank you so much, Hope.
Welcome.
All right, we are going to proceed with planning board case numbers 1111XX, 1857, and 1857A. If those who plan to speak or offer testimony Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
Do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oyer, will you be proceeding?
I will, yes. Are you ready, Mr. Chair?
We are.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. I'm delighted to be appearing in front of you tonight on behalf of Palm Beach Atlantic University. Let me sort of set the table here for what the request is, and then I'm going to turn it over to several other people. So there are two 50 or 60-year-old vintage apartment buildings along South Flagler Drive that operated for many years privately. And as the need arose over time, Palm Beach Atlantic University acquired them and used them for student housing. As we're probably all aware, a brand new, beautiful, best-in-class student housing building opened a month and a half ago at the corner of Dixie and Okeechobee. And all of the students housed in these two apartment buildings were moved into the new student housing. So these are redundant. The university does not need them. They're not in the apartment business. They are in the educating student business. And they would like to put these back on the tax roll and sell them to a private apartment operator, presumably. In order to do that, we need to put them back into their original zoning, which was MF32. When the university acquired them, they brought them into their CSPD. So the request before you this evening is a three-part request. Amend the CSPD to remove these two parcels from the CSPD. Second request is to restore the original multifamily future land use designation. And the third request is to restore the original zoning MF32. So effectively, we are asking your board to put these back to the way they were. We are fortunate to not only have staff recommendation for approval with conditions that we accept, but we also have the support of almost all of our surrounding neighbors, including immediately adjacent Memorial Presbyterian Church, the Norton, who is across the street to the west, Family Church, who is our largest neighbor, the Bristol, who's across the street at the northern part of the campus, as well as some others. I am going to have Joni Brinkman make the presentation, but before I do, I would like to introduce, many of you have not had the pleasure of meeting her yet, but we have a brand new president of the university, Dr. Deborah Schwinn, and Deborah Schwinn would like to introduce herself to all of you and share a few words. And Dr. Schwinn, we're honored and delighted that you're with us, and also with you is Patrick Koenig, who needs no introduction. He's a long time trustee of the university and chairs the committee overseeing this project. So you have two representatives of the property owner with us this evening. Dr. Schwinn.
Great, thank you very much. As president of Palm Beach Atlantic University, I would like to thank you for your review and consideration of our university's application to remove the Flagler Towers and Lakeview apartment sites from the university's planned development and return them back to their original zoning designations. The university purchased these properties when we were in need of additional student housing. And fortunately, as was just mentioned, we opened our brand new 510-bed state-of-the-art student housing facility last month, moving all of our students previously housed at Flagler Towers and Lakeview Apartments to our new student housing facility. So as a result, the university no longer needs these buildings and would like to return them to the private sector. The future sale of these parcels is an integral part of our long-term planning, providing important resources to reinvest in our students, while also returning these two important parcels back to the city tax roll. We are proud to serve this community, to be a resource that offers elevated learning opportunities, and to champion ethical leadership anchored in faith. With a forward-looking vision and plan, Palm Beach Atlantic University will continue to be a tremendous asset to West Palm Beach and all of its residents. And so thank you very much for considering our request.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schwinn. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission at this point, I'll turn it over to Joni Brinkman, the land planner who is familiar to all of you. She's represented PBAU for years. So, Joni?
Okay, John, I can just share the screen now.
Yep.
Oh, stop. Okay. Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate what Mr. Oyer has already outlined, this is a three-part request. Oh, I'm sorry, for the record, Joni Brinkman with Urban Design Studio on behalf of Palm Beach Atlantic University.
And thank you. I hate to interrupt, but just a quick question. I don't know, John, if you can assist. I have this problem when I use Zoom as well. Our pictures are off to the side, so they block part of what we see. Is there any way we can make that a little smaller so we can see all the text that you're putting up for us? If it's a problem, don't worry about it. It just,
I believe that's an individual setting on your computer.
oh, I can do that. I don't know if others are experiencing the same issue as me.
You should be able to resize the window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just hide the thumbnail. Yeah.
Okay, I can do that too. Thank you. All right, please proceed.
Okay. The first part of the request is to remove a little over 3 acres of land and amend the boundary of the master plan for the CSPD. The second request associated with the application includes amending the future land use of that property, as well as a little bit of additional property I'll get into a little bit later in the presentation, back to the, from CS back to the multifamily land use designation, and rezone from CSPD to MF32 for that entire land area as well. I'll try to zip through this because I know we're supposed to be done by 6:30. This area shows you just the current boundaries of the master plan for the university. And this is the area associated with Lakeview Apartments and Flagler Towers being removed from the CSPD. Here you can see a little bit better close-up view of Lakeview and Flagler and the parking associated with it. There's currently 178 parking spaces on the site. And in regards to history, Flagler Towers was brought into the CSPD in 1996 and Lakeview Apartments in 2004. The area to be removed, again, is shown here, and this slide is intended to indicate the preponderance of multifamily 32 zoning in the area. It's our immediate north and then south of the park associated with the Norton. And pretty much then from the south down to Tuxedo is on both sides of Flagler and Olive in this area. In addition, there are some in multifamily 32 zonings that have been further rezoned to residential plan development, one immediately north of us and then south of Arcadia Court. The CSPD boundary, as I mentioned, will be amended to remove the apartment buildings from the CSPD. In addition, the smaller land area that's shown here under Flagler Drive is included in the land use and the zoning request. The rationale for that is the fact that some of this land, this land area is platted years and years ago, was actually submerged at the time. And when the land was filled in for Flagler Drive, the prior owners and such then the university retained the ownership of the fee underneath Flagler. So that land area is owned by the university and is being included in this request to go to the multifamily FLU and the multifamily 32 zoning district. That documentation has been submitted to your staff. Both, I believe, legal and survey have reviewed it and they're in agreement with that determination. Very quickly, just running through the standards as included in your staff report. Your professional staff has agreed that we are consistent with the plan development amendment standards of 9432. The future land use map standards within your comprehensive plan for the change, and the rezoning standards in 9432. In agreement, in regards to the conditions of approval contained in your staff report, Palm Beach Atlantic University is in agreement with all the conditions. And again, they focus around parking. The 178 parking spaces that are currently on Flagler, the university has already signed and will be recording an instrument attesting to the fact that those spaces will remain available for the university's parking throughout the end of this calendar school year. And then I'm beginning on August 1st and for the next school year on an annual basis, the university will prepare and provide to the city a professionally an engineer report in regards to the supply and demand of parking on the master plan and within the campus. We understand that there could be some additional requirements if for some reason the demand exceeds the supply, but we do not anticipate that happening as we have agreements offsite and actually have some additional land that we can utilize for parking as well. Mr. Orier had mentioned that we have quite a few support letters. He had mentioned Memorial Presbyterian Church, the Family Church, Bristol, the Norton Museum of Art, and also Mr. and Mrs. McCain, property owners in the area, business owners, also provided a letter of support. That concludes our presentation. Basically, we were just asking to go back to the previous designations that were attached to the property and are looking for your recommendation to the City Commission for approval. And we're available for any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions of the applicant? I'm just going to call on people, forgive me, because it's hard to keep track. Mark, any questions? Peter? Deborah?
No.
Andre? Birthday boy, Chris?
No, no questions.
Okay, Scott?
No questions.
Okay, I did have one, and I just want to have an understanding. I'm not saying it's going to be a factor in any decision I render tonight, but of the three different things we're asked to vote on, I would like to know what the allowable building heights are now, and with these votes, does it change what the allowable building heights will be? And I don't know if you could address that, Ms. Brinkman.
Is that directed to me, Mr. Chair?
Oh, forgive me. I didn't know whoever wanted. She was making the presentation, but that, Harvey, if you're in a position to answer that, if you know, I appreciate it.
I'm not. I don't know offhand what the building height limitation is in the CSPD. And of course, in MF 32, it's related, I believe, to your side setbacks. I imagine Eric Schneider might know with more
And again,
precision.
I'm not suggesting that necessarily impact. I just wanted for my own background understanding. Any other questions first of the applicant? And if not, we'd like to hear from staff. I know who's doing the presentation on behalf of staff.
Doing the presentation, for the record, Eric Schneider, Principal Planner. Joni covered everything that I was going to cover in my PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not going to bore you with another one. I do want to point out, though, that there is a 3-foot strip in the middle of the north-south portion of Flagler Drive that actually was an alley at one point. The parts underneath where the two residential buildings had been abandoned to the college over time. So we actually, the city owns a 3-foot north to south by the width of Flagler Drive strip in that area that Joni showed you. So that will not be part of the actual request, even though it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because it's still right away owned by the city. As far as your question on the height, I have to apologize that having not done the original Palm Beach Atlantic and not contemplating that question was going to be asked, I don't honestly know what the height is, and my printing of the master plan is so small I can't read it.
I do, Eric. It's 125 feet within the master plan.
Okay, so
that's what's allowable today.
Yes.
And with these votes, does that change?
Whatever
No.
comes forward in the future will have to meet the property development regulations at the time. So, Eric, I don't know if you want to opine to MF 32.
Well, for the college, the part that's going to remain in the CSPD, it's still going to be 120 feet, unless the college came back and did a major amendment to ask for greater height at some point if they needed to put more stuff, fit more on their about 19 acres that they have. As far as the two parcels that came out, Harvey was correct. It is based on the side setbacks that you have, the north and south side setbacks. You get 2 feet in height basically for 1 foot additional setback once you go over 50 feet. But as seen in the project to the north of that, the 1309 project, and if I'm not mistaken, the Bristol project, as well as the modern project, which Joni showed as the RPD further south, if a property went RPD, they could ask for the height setback waivers to go higher than whatever it was going to be. They'd be giving less setbacks to go for the height. One of the things that staff has, at what we understand the direction from the city commission, is to keep buildings at no taller than 300 feet along Flagler Drive. And that's why you see the 1309 project, now known as the Forte to the north, is at 300 feet in height. You've got the LeClaire project at just under 300 feet in height. Actually, I guess the Forte is actually just barely under 300 feet as well, excluding mechanical. And the Bristol's in that same range. So those are the things that would be, if somebody came in and wanted to redevelop that site as a planned development, that's opens a different height setback ratio, but it is based on the width of the lot, which I don't have in front of me exactly how wide the lot is to give you an exact calculation, but it would have to follow, without a rezoning, the MF 32, and presumably would be shorter than 120 feet.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Snyder?
Not unless you have any questions of staff.
I'll start with just one. I mean, we've heard a lot of strong reasons why we should grant this. Is there any reason you could think of why we wouldn't?
Staff and the applicant work very hard to make sure that with the conditions that are included, we will protect the surrounding neighborhood of any negative issues. The multifamily 32 is what these properties were before they were brought in. So they were residential. Obviously, they were built before that, before the MF 32, back when it was still R4, which is our highest density at the time. Because of the way they were built, there are some setback, some landscape nonconformities that continue to exist. They're grandfathered in along the south portion of the site, but the rest of the site pretty much meet code compliance, but haven't changed since they were brought into the plan development. Once again, if somebody came in with an application to do something different on this, other than rehab the buildings and occupy them in their current form, they would almost 99% have to come back to city commission, planning board and city commission as either a site plan review, DSI site plan, or a plan development. But it's,
And I recall Mr. Thomas has warned us in the past that we are to consider the applications before us and not some potential future one that is not. Is that a fair statement of your position, Mr. Thomas?
It is. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We try to learn, listen and learn. All right. Anything else, Mr. Snyder?
I'll wait to see if you guys have any questions, and if
Understood.
There's anybody.
Let me go around quickly and see if there's any questions of staff. Deborah, any questions? Andre? Chris? Todd?
No questions.
Peter?
Two quick ones.
Okay.
Eric, when we approved the property to the north, if I remember, there were issues regarding the underground utilities and also road improvements. Is that something that will be addressed for the next phase of this development?
Because this is going back to what it was built as and the same amount of units, and I do want to point out, it's in my staff report and it wasn't clearly said by the applicant, that we did the numbers. This does not exceed the 32 units per acre allowed by the comprehensive plan or the MF 32 zoning. So there's no non-conforming density issues. All the underground infrastructure is still in place, is the same as it was when those buildings were originally built. So there's no need as part of this application, because there's no change to the building, no additional units for any of those changes or any other improvements, offsite mitigation or anything else, because there is no development going on with this application. In the future, if something does come in, whatever it may be, anything new, we would be going through our engineering department, would be reviewing it to make sure that everything met current code, zoning, planning, fire. Everybody that reviews it would go through the steps, and then presumably would be coming before the planning board and city commission for development. And then we would, if there were any mitigating factors for whatever reasons, that's where it would be reviewed at that time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, any questions? Did I miss anyone? And if not, would anyone from the public wish to be heard? I don't know how we're handling this. Has anyone made a request? Is anyone present in this meeting who wishes to speak?
Mr. Chair, I don't see where anyone's expressed interest in public comment.
I thank you. In which case, we'll bring it back to the board. Let me just ask the members, does anyone have an issue or an objection to the requested relief here today? And if not, I'll look for a motion. I guess we
I'll
should
make a
take these
motion to
separately.
approve.
I think we need to do these separately.
Yes, separately, please.
Okay, so let's take them one at a time. Who was making the motion?
I was making a motion, but
Okay, thank you. Start with the first one. It's just, we'll do one at a time.
okay, here, let me, I'm gonna let somebody else do it because I am still, I need to pull up the agenda.
Does anyone have it in front of them who could?
Sorry about that.
Peter, your mute's on if you're speaking. There you go.
I'm the designated one, I guess. I have it here.
He doesn't like anyone encroaching in his territory.
All right. I move approval on case number 1011XX with two conditions in the report. And it's based on the findings that the petition meets the required standards in section 94-32.
Excuse me, Peter, there's three conditions.
1, 2, oh, sorry, 3 conditions, my mistake. I have to move the page up a bit more. 3 conditions, based on the findings that the petition meets the required standards in section 94-32 of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations.
We have a motion. Have we a second?
Make a second.
A motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Pivko, next motion.
Move approval of case number 1857. And it's based on the findings that the petition meets at least one of the 5 future land use amendment standards found in future land use element policy 1.1.7 of the city's comprehensive plan.
Have we a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr.
Okay,
Pivko,
third
one more.
Move approval of case number 1857A, which is based on the findings that the petition meets all 8 rezoning standards found in section 94-32 of the zoning and land development regulations.
Mr. Paradello, may we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Dr. Swin, welcome to the city and welcome. Congratulations on your new duties there. Wish you great success.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
At this point, we will move on to our next case. Was there code revision? No, excuse me. I think, let me check here. Is there any other business we have? I don't have my agenda out. Is there any other cases we need to be hearing? And if not, well,
Only one?
okay. Sorry. That's it. We're done. We'll look for then as to other business.
What happened to case number 1861?
That's what I was hoping.
There's another case.
1861 we still have?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to 1861.
North
See, I have my
Australia.
notes wrong. Mr. Moderator, Mr. Roach, do we bring the new people in for?
It's a city initiated request. Ms. Wooten will present.
Okay. Ms. Wooten, you have the floor.
Do I need to be sworn in?
Oh, yes, you sure do. I'm sorry. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
Yes, I do. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now.
See, he had me so conditioned in this meeting by 6:30. I was just trying to move it along.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
We sure can.
Okay, great. For the record, my name is Elena Wooten, representing the planning staff in this case, PB 1861. This is a city-initiated rezoning at 25th Street and North Australian Avenue. The city initiated request for a map amendment to the City of West Palm Beach zoning map to rezone multiple properties on the east side of Australian Avenue between 2508 and 2808 North Australian Avenue from office commercial to neighborhood commercial. The subject properties street addresses are 2508, 2600, 2620, 2624, 2640, 2670, 2708, 2724, 2808 North Australian Avenue, and 1151 25th Street. The future land use of these properties are commercial. The current uses are commercial, place of worship, business, medical, and nonprofit office. The surrounding uses are commercial, business, medical office, industrial, and residential. As you can see, looking at the zoning map, which would be on your left-hand side, you can see that there are several residential neighborhoods surrounding this area as indicated by the yellow. So by rezoning and allowing for additional commercial uses to the property owners, you would allow for the provision of neighborhood services to the surrounding residential areas. If we look at the future land use map, which is adjacent to the zoning map, we can see that the whole area where the subject properties are of a commercial land use. So rezoning these properties to be more inclusive of commercial uses is a natural progression. In addition, because the land use will remain the same, land use amendment is not required. Just a little background on the request. From time to time, the city examines certain areas to ensure that the current zoning is appropriate for the long-term viability of the area. After the city received an application for rezoning of the property located at 2624 North Australian Avenue to an industrial zoning district in efforts to establish a gas station and a convenience store through a special use permit. So staff looked and examined the properties on the east side of Australian Avenue between 2508 and 2808 North Australian to determine the practicality of the existing office commercial zoning district in this area. After looking at these properties, the planning division determined that the current zoning of OC is not the most compatible district for the properties mentioned above, given the proximity of the several residential neighborhoods. This determination was based on the narrow nature of office uses in the office commercial district and the inability to provide neighborhood services to the surrounding residential neighborhoods. So the planning division is proposing to rezone these properties to neighborhood commercial. The future land use designation of these properties will remain commercial, as I stated before, so a land use map amendment is not required. The rezoning will be advantageous because it would allow the property owners approximately 28 additional uses, which in turn, will provide additional supportive commercial services to the surrounding neighborhoods. In addition, the proposed rezoning will not impact the current licensed businesses or tenants in the area. Staff has found that this request complies with all of the amendment standards in section 9432 of the zoning and land development regulations, and staff recommends approval of this case 1861. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions of Ms. Wooten? I'm not going to go around the horn. Oh, there we are. I can see. Anyone have any questions? I have one. You had mentioned 28 additional uses. Can you give me an example of the kind of use that's going to be allowable now if we support
Yeah,
this,
sure.
as opposed to something they can't do now that you think would be beneficial for this area?
Okay. Also in my staff report, attachment 1 lists all the new permitted uses.
Okay.
So you can see that there are several specific commercial uses that are now going to be permitted in this area. A food store, greenhouse, a music and dance studios.
I mean, were there some particular, you had said there was some interest in
Yeah, yes.
gas and a convenience. Are you thinking of a few specific things that there may be interest in that you want to make sure is allowed?
That application, they actually came in to do a gas station, a convenience store, which in itself is not permitted in the office commercial district as of today, which is why we came up with this to change it to neighborhood commercial, which it would be allowed, but they would still have to get a special use permit through the ZBA.
Well, I commend you. I think it's great when someone comes in for a particular parcel, you kind of look at the whole area and it makes sense to do it this way. Any questions? Further questions of this lady? I don't know if we have anyone for the public. Mr. Moderator, Mr. Roach, can you let us know, is anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
Yes, there is one person who raised their hand. Let me bring them in just 1 second.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, you've been brought in. You should be able to speak.
And Ms. Smith, I see that your microphone is turned off. You can activate that. And I think your camera is also turned off. If that's easy to do, at least on my screen, it's the 2 icons in the lower bottom left-hand corner. Probably a circle through both. If you just left-click the microphone and left-click the video, it should activate both. I don't know if she can hear me, but we can. Let's see. Can you, Mr. Roach, are you able to help her?
I've requested to unmute.
Okay.
She has to authorize. So.
Sure. Ms. Smith, I don't know if you can hear us, but you need to turn your microphone on or we cannot hear you. And similarly, your camera's off. So again, I would
sign language.
If you could look to, I think if she can hear us, that's not going to be the problem. The icon, the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there should be a microphone and a video icon. There's probably a circle, red circle through both. If you left-click each one, it should activate your microphone and activate your camera. John, I don't know if you could use the chat feature to maybe try to reach to her.
Yeah, I just made the request now.
Okay. I've been living on Zoom, my nation practice.
I haven't gotten a response. That was the only public comment, or the only person who's expressed interest.
All right.
They raised their hand, so.
Let's give her another minute, see if we get it to work. She can maybe submit something in writing.
She just wrote in the chat that the community does not support this.
Okay. Ms. Wooten, I'll give you a chance to respond. Do we have any sense of community sentiments other than those expressed by Ms. Smith just now?
Well, I did have about 4 people reach out to ask about the nature of the request. 2 of those people were property owners of the subject properties, and they had questions about how this would affect them and some of the things that they would like to do if they could do that with the zoning change. And then there was another property owner that has the business on the other side, and they wanted to know what the permitted uses would be, the new uses.
Right. Did we hear from anyone, any of the residential areas? Did any of them express any view on this?
I have not, no. I did speak with Ms. Smith today, and I gave her the information to come into the meeting. So she did.
Did you have a chance, and she's unable to speak? Do you have a chance of articulating what her concerns or objections are?
She is concerned with the nature of the business that wants to come in with the gas station. She's concerned about safety issues that maybe were historically in that area with a convenience store on the at the intersection of 25th and Australian. Um, I spoke with her and I told her that the applicants do have to go through a special use permit application and have that approved in order to actually have the use there.
So when you explained before, if we vote in favor of this, it doesn't automatically allow the
Right,
gas.
correct.
There's still additional process I have to go through.
Correct.
Did she express concern about any other of the allowable uses besides the gas station?
That is what she expressed to me was, yes.
All right, at this point then, since we're unable to hear from her, I guess we do have at least a sense of what her concerns are. I bring it back to the board for discussion. Does anyone have any concerns or objections to this initiative?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question for Ms. Wooten. I don't have the use table in front of me, so I can't see the additional 28 uses, but I just have a general sense that there's a significant demand for what I'll call kind of small bay distribution for people that are entrepreneurs that live in the area that are trying to start kind of home businesses that they can't do out of their garage. So they're looking for smaller bay that might be considered industrial or smaller bay cold storage. Can you do that type of distribution, storage, small business, small bay use in the new neighborhood commercial zoning? That might be, in simpatico with the use with the residential uses and what some of the smaller businesses might want to see, if that's part of the goal.
I think I would need to get a little bit more description on the use. It sounds like it's more industrial, a little bit more in nature. This commercial district for commercial, like small scale commercial uses, locksmith, key establishments, music and dance studios, recreation indoor, produce markets, bait and tackle shops, things of that nature. I don't see a big storage component to that.
Yeah, I know. This is a kind of a bigger picture conceptual thing that we need to think about it. What you described in neighborhood commercial or traditional retail sale of goods stores, that kind of neighborhood facing stores that in many ways are being made obsolete by the e-retailers. And if we're limiting this neighborhood to these kind of neighborhood based stores, that sounds quaint and it sounds, that's a great idea conceptually, but there's a lot of these neighborhoods that want to have the ability to run their small business, which is really just effectively a tiny distribution unit, a 800 square foot, 1,000 square foot roll up door distribution unit, because they're selling, I don't know, whatever it is they're selling, Tupperware containers, or they've made a business out of selling, shell bracelets, and they have the distribution and storage and the showroom component, and they're doing that. It's not just what we thought of in the 50s and 60s as neighborhood uses.
So
like
Mark, your
locksmith.
Jacqueline Smith is
argument
on
is-
now.
Okay, well, one second, just to follow.
Okay.
You're not necessarily opposed to this. You would like to see actually it expanded further. Than the
Yeah, I mean, I really think the city's goal is noble here, and that they're trying to make, to incentivize development in this area for the types of uses that are going to be compatible with the residential components of this neighborhood. But what I'm saying is that some of how we think about retail and how we think about what works in a neighborhood setting that is still fairly auto-centric is not the traditional hardware store, dry cleaner, locksmith that we enumerate in these use tables. We really need to get a little bit more granular with our use tables in the face of e-commerce and how small business operates. It doesn't operate with a guy standing behind a desk making keys as much anymore. There are other types of businesses that entrepreneurs of all ilk want to see and can operate in their community, and something that might have traditionally been looked at as industrial. And Ms. Wooten, your instinct is right. I think that what I'm describing probably falls under some kind of industrial use or industrial zoning category, and it is in no way kind of manufacturing or industry. It's a storage for distribution businesses for people using e-commerce.
Mr. Planning Board Member Mark, let me Angela Vance, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Originally, you have to look back to what I understand. Don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of how industry is involved in retail because of what's happening. But again, when you look at this area, it's basically was office supportive of the neighborhood. One of the main things that I think doing neighborhood commercial does offer retail, but not necessarily retail in the sense of you're selling goods from a place. You can't just go in and do just a storage facility. No. I mean, they have storage areas. They have almost 1, 2, 3 different actual storage units, storage businesses in the area. They can store things there. But I think what we're trying to open it up for, and what people have asked us over the years is, can they do retail? You know, we got one of the places that's office building wanted to do pop-up retail for the small business just starting out, where it's 3 of them in a area where they can share things that's not people walking in, but they can do stuff like that, which they can't do on the OC. So basically, it really opens it up to more of a retail type. I understand the face is changing, but if somebody wants to do what you say, there are actually 1, 2, almost 3 storage facilities in the vicinity for the neighborhoods to use. So I think that's the main thing, to open it up to more retail type use.
I think, Angela, though, I think Mark's only point, and he certainly speak for himself, is as we move forward with this, keep in mind that in a new e-commerce world, that what customary would work for small businesses may be changing and different. And he just wants the city to be mindful of that as we move the process forward.
Yeah, but retail business is permitted.
Right.
Retail business is a permitted use.
Today, under the new code, yes.
On the new one. And that should encompass quite a bit of what you had to say, Mark.
Yeah, right. You can fudge the storeroom storage component behind your 400-foot retail showroom. Yeah.
Okay, I think Ms. Smith, are you available now?
Yes, my apologies, please.
Don't apologize at all. Can you activate your camera in the bottom left corner where you got your microphone? There should be a camera feature. If you left click it, then it'll activate your camera for us. If you can, it's okay. I'm begging pardon?
She's on mute again.
Did I mute myself?
I'm muted. And then did you see the button there by the camera? It says video.
I don't have a camera.
Okay,
my picture is there.
Okay, go ahead then and proceed.
Okay, I'm so sorry, but my camera is not operable at this point.
Okay.
I think that the neighborhood has watched this from the very beginning, and to us, there's a little more history involved in this. The original plan, because there's been a second application that's been submitted by this applicant, the original plan, because this parcel has a parcel that fronts Australian Avenue, and then there's a second parcel behind it that is practically on the railroad. The parcel in the back, and the developer wants to put the 2 parcels together. The parcel in the back is zoned industrial, and the plan originally was to make both parcels, I think, I don't want to mistake myself, to make both parcels industrial. And when I said to Ms. Jones that was spot zoning, then it was changed and it was going to become office commercial. But this whole change of these properties that are now retail properties actually is for this 12-pump service station, a drive-through restaurant situation that would be open possibly 24 hours a day, and a convenience store. It is not for these commercial businesses. So just like we've been before various boards here when things have been stretched, and when we got Stephen's Funeral Home called a chapel, and several other things, this zoning is for that business of a major service station and a convenience store and a drive-through eating facility on a street from 45th Street to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard that has no use of this kind at all. If you look at Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard from Flagler to I-95, I think we count 5 service stations and a myriad of eating facilities drive-through. On Palm Beach, on 45th Street, Not only do you have all those service stations with several pumps, you're getting a Wawa, I think 2 Wawas between Australian and Military Trail. What we are opposing is to have a 12-pump service station on a street with churches, parks, schools, nursing homes, and other nonprofit facilities. Nothing like that exists. And this is, in our opinion, it's basically a ruse. They are taking the first step of changing from office commercial to neighborhood commercial. And the second step will be to the Zoning Board of Appeals to get a special use for a 12-pump service station on a street that doesn't need it, doesn't have it, and doesn't want it. It will be near churches, and it won't be that far from our single-family homes. So today, for instance, I happened to go to the Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know if it still is planned to go there on 25th Street, but it's open about, I think it's 18 hours a day. We do not want that on that street. When the former business which was there, which was Majestic Market, it was crime-ridden. It was open all hours of the night. And we see the same thing about to happen here. And they will actually have more coverage because they will have more gas pumps. They will have a larger convenience store, and they will have a drive-through restaurant. So I'm sorry that I don't agree that this neighborhood commercial is going to help people sell things. We've heard that kind of story before. There are commercial businesses there that are doing fine and selling things. They have sales, but there is something else happening here, and it's something that's going to change the nature of that street. So when you drive it from 45th Street to Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, you will not find a 12-pump station or a large convenience store or a drive-through eating facility. So we are very much against it, and we're working very hard not to have it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments. Let me ask Ms. Wooten, I wasn't clear among the allowable uses if this goes through. Would that include a drive-through restaurant?
That's something that would be permitted, but they would have to get a special use permit by the ZBA to be able to have that specific.
So just to be clear, we know the gas station would need a special permit, the restaurant would need a special permit. Was there any other of the things she described that could be done of right if this is approved without getting a special permit?
That whole process that the applicant wanted to do requires a special exception, everything.
All right, are there other questions of Ms. Wooten? Let's bring it back then to the board. We've heard from the public. Any discussions, any observations?
Yeah, I'd like to go, please. I just want to say, one, I think that, I take Ms. Smith's comments, and but I think that her concerns, valid though they may be, I think that goes back to the principle that we addressed in the previous case discussion about, only focusing on the question before us today, not basing a decision today based on possibilities in the future. And those those issues would properly be addressed either by this board if necessary, or by the zoning board, whichever of appeals, whichever proper board they would go before. So I don't think that they necessarily are germane to this particular discussion. I'd also add that as a resident, as someone who uses that, I'm there all the time. I drive down Australian to 25th or to 36 to get to and from my house every day. I do think that I can't vote tonight, but I would be in favor of this move. I think that there is a need for rezoning to allow for more potential uses, more diverse uses along this corridor. And I think that's just this resident's opinion. Thank you.
Other comments? I'll make one observation. I think a lot of the points she raised are legitimate ones. One I find less persuasive is when people say, oh, you don't need a gas station, you don't need a restaurant because we have these others. I can't imagine people will build them, companies who build them, if they don't expect that the market demand is there. You know, I mean, I'm confident that a lot of them are not going to do this to lose money. So perhaps the demand is greater than she may appreciate. She described a convenience station that was crime. There's also the possibility of a well-managed, well-run, secure business that could be an asset to that community as well. But anyway, those are just my observations. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts? And if not, I'll look for a motion. Either to approve or disapprove, but a motion. We need to move forward.
We make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Peter, were you a second? Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, that then brings us to other business, unfinished business, new business. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say before we adjourn? And if not, I thank you for all your time.
Goodbye.
And adjourn. Happy birthday, Chris.
Happy birthday, Chris. Good night, everybody.
Happy birthday.